Yeah, for me, it was always, if someone needs help, you help them, especially if they ask for it. But but if they don't ask for it and you know about it, you go help them. My dad would show up to my grandpa's farm just to help work on some projects here and there because he knew he was working on them.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. Today, we've got a very special guest, Eli Bell. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm just kidding. It's like the easiest name ever to pronounce. I think even Ross could probably even get that one right. So I appreciate you coming on today. Give us some background on yourself. Tell us who you are.
Man, I'm just a regular guy. I think people might be a little disappointed to hear that I'm not real interesting, not real special, but just a real small town guy. Grew up in the woods in northern Pennsylvania, and I try to stay involved in local stuff. I'm involved in when I went to college, I got involved in a fraternity. It turned into being involved in Greek Senate while I was in college. A lot of community service as kind of a result, right? But built that sense of community with a spread out group throughout upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania. And when I came home, I got re-involved in a lot of the local stuff with the fair. When I was coming up through in high school, I showed goats through 4-H, and coming up through there, I just decided, I'll kind of give back a little bit and help the next group of kids do the same kind of stuff I did. So,
well, what kind of stuff are we talking about? You grew up on a farm or some shit?
yeah, real small dairy farm up the road that was my grandfather and grandmother's, and it passed down to my uncle. So, Friday nights were spent staying up at grandma's and helping feed calves and stuff. And then, in the summer when hay was to be done, we'd go do hay,
Cool.
Pretty small operation, but it builds that sense of community and gets a little hard work under your belt at an early age.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, regardless of what your upbringing is or where you are, I think it's always an important lesson for a young person to learn or to associate their sustenance, their shelter, their food, whatever it is, with some kind of work product, right? It's an effort being made. It seems kind of obvious, but it really isn't. We've had, like when we had Steve Ranella on the show from Mediator, by the way, if you're not familiar, we had Steve on the show, and he's talking about even when he lived in New York, he would take his kids out to the park and forage for things, like teach them what plants you can and can't eat, trap pigeons, kill squirrels, shit like that. So it's not everybody lives in a small town. Not everybody lives near a ranch or a farm or something like that. But there's always ways you can teach that lesson at a pretty young age. And I think it's a super important thing to do.
Yeah, that's something I'm hoping. I'm like 98% through Ranella's new book there, the Raising Outdoor Kids in an Inside World. And I think it's great. And I'm reading it because I have, a 2-year-old and a newborn at home that I want to have a similar, ethos of thought. I feel like I got some good morals and I got some good work ethic and things growing up that I want to be able to pass that on to the next generation.
Sure. And what is it? So this is something, this exposure to work product and outdoor life and things like that. It was something that was just kind of naturally available to you, right?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, my parents they ended up during my childhood purchasing 200 acres of that whole farm. There's probably 600 in all between some of my older family, and they bought 200 of it to help, pay their retirement, So I had woods right across the road, right in my back.
I think I may have lost your audio there for a second.
Yeah, it was detecting a feedback loop on there.
But. Yeah, I've got you now. So, you came out of this, out of the situation where, plenty of exposure to modern life, but also, you know, a little bit of the old way of doing stuff. And out of that, I'm curious how you think that experience dovetails into some of the issues that we see in the United States today, I guess, and also just the West in general, but particularly here in the U.S.
Well, I think for me, I think it dovetails well because I'm seeing things and realizing things that I think I got a little less of that participation trophy those in my upbringing. And, you know, there's like that Charlie Brown meme that floats around Facebook and Instagram. It's like stupid should hurt. And I don't think enough people realize that stupid should hurt. You know, when you do something wrong, you shouldn't be rewarded for it. You should feel that pain on some level, right? Depending on, you know, the escalation of force of how stupid of a thing you did. But,
Sure.
you know, people don't realize there's consequences behind what's going on. And I think that cascades into a lot of people's political beliefs. You know, they think it's okay to have everybody else foot their bill.
Sure. Well, I mean,
I got school loans too, and they'll
yeah.
probably disappear if this whole thing goes through, but I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the proper way to do it. I should be paying off my own loans. I took them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think a lot of people agree that is the ethical way to go about doing things. And I also think people agree that it's best for society when we go about things that way. But I would add that it's also better for the person, you know, the individual involved, to hold them accountable for whatever it is, from the earliest possible opportunity as a human being. An easy metaphor is like you're trying to teach somebody, let's say you're trying to teach them math, right? And they keep getting the problem wrong and you keep telling them they're correct. Now, how the fuck are you helping them learn math? You know what I mean? That you would never actually make any kind of improvement in that scenario because there is no feedback. There's no real feedback. It's just bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. You can't. I mean, when you're helping somebody because they need help and you're going out of your way to do it, that shouldn't be a government mandate thing. It shouldn't be something that's forced upon people. It should come out of a moral and ethical responsibility to do so. It shouldn't be an edict from above.
Well, you can't legislate morality, right? Like the people are either going to do the right thing or they're not. And they're going to do the right thing when that's what's expected of them, not when it's what's demanded of them. And that may seem like, you know, I don't know, a silly distinction, but I want to unpack that for a moment. So mandating versus expecting is do what I say, not what I do, rules for thee, not for me. So if you're a leader and you expect things to go a certain way, for people to behave a certain way or to take action a certain way in a particular circumstance, then the best way to ensure that happens is for you to do it your fucking self. You know what I mean? To lead by example. That's how people will follow. If you say one thing and do another, then you're forced to mandate. And this is why it's why no form of government scales, but particularly ones that require specific behaviors out of people, like socialism, communism, things like this. They require participation from people at an institution level for them to work properly. And people don't want to do that shit, so you have to engage in authoritarianism at some point to make it work properly. Now, the problem with representative republics, with democracy, with capitalism in general, is that it still requires the same effort for it to be successful, but there's no way to mandate that stuff because it immediately becomes fascism, basically. It immediately becomes authoritarian if you try to mandate anything in a system like this. And, you know, people look for leadership to do the right thing. You know, in the 1950s, we had a whole different set of problems, you know, various forms of segregation and oppression and things like that. But the general sense in communities is if somebody needs help, you help them, regardless of what their political beliefs are and that other bullshit. Now we just have a totally different set of problems here, but it's the same thing, right? We see people in leadership positions not doing their jobs, and it's just not going to inspire anybody. So, anyways, you get into you come out of this what probably isn't a very uncommon experience. I mean, I experience a lot of this as well, living in a city, but also having quite a bit of outdoor time. And for some reason, you decided you started this organization, Fraternal Outdoors. Can you tell me what that is and how it started?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's more of an idea than it is anything. Just a whole lot of my friends and a whole lot of my fraternity brothers and alumni. We, especially through the fraternity, we were kind of known as the outdoorsy fraternity at Alfred State, and we went through and we made a point to do less parties in a fraternity house and more parties out in the woods at a bonfire. And it was like a half mile up a hill on the backside of the other university across the street. So it was quite a haul for a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. For most of us, we were kind of trained to do it. It wasn't a big deal it was a big deal if we brought a keg. It was the only time it was really a big deal. But we'd go up there and we'd have more of an outdoor ethos around us, and we tried to do outdoor things, go camping, stuff like that. And as we got out of college, we missed that more and more because we had that camaraderie amongst each other. So Fraternal Outdoors started as a way of us just to kind of share our stuff that we were doing outdoorsy in each of our places, and then it turned into an idea of just an excuse to get together and do more of it. This past weekend, me and one of the other guys, we got together and worked on our duck boat, camped out at a little cabin on my property. So
and is there like an outreach portion where you're trying to get other people involved here?
There is, yeah. It's still a little on a local or our group basis. We're trying to drag people out, get them outdoors more. It's in early stages, and we're trying to get some podcasts in the can. We've got some audio saved up that hopefully in October we'll be throwing out. But yeah, we're trying to make it seem fun and make it seem very achievable for everyone.
And so talk to me more about that. What's the goal, short term and long term of the program? Obviously, short term is to get exposure and stuff, but what's your long term goal with this?
I'd love to just make the outdoors more achievable for everyone.
What do you mean by achievable?
There's a lot of people that it's a lot easier to sit at home and watch Twitch, or a lot easier to play video games. They know how to get into it. It's second nature for most kids my age to be on the internet instead of outside. But the feedback you get when you're in the outdoors, the way you feel when you're out of service and your phone's in your truck and you haven't touched it in 20 plus hours, it's a different feeling, and it's a good one.
So you want to kind of show people through this program that there's something to be gained, I guess, from unplugging and going back out there and experiencing nature with your friends and shit. That's kind of the goal. Yeah,
that and like I said, a little bit of hard work doesn't hurt either. We kind of show we've got the farm property, and there's always something broke down, so we don't steer away from showing that we got some stuff going on that we're fixing, and we're still making time to get outside.
What kind of farm is it? What do you guys do up there?
It's mostly a hobby farm at this point. It's the 200 acres, and then my mom still has, and my wife, there's a handful of goats and a couple horses and a sheep. But it's 200 acres of property upkeep, so there's always something going on. There's always a tractor broken down, or hay that needs put in, or
I would imagine so. I can't even find the time to take care of my small 1.5 acre lot at my house right now. So
meanwhile my yard is like 6 or so inches of grass in some of the spots.
Well, it's
I back up to a river, and that it just grows like crazy.
It's like being a mechanic. You know what I mean? Like your personal car is always fucked up for some reason. You never find time. All right, good. That's a good base. I like the idea of getting outdoors more. I think it's interesting that we have, as a society, as we've grown out of the necessity to do some of these outdoor things, a lot of people begin doing it as a hobby now, right? And I'm not sure why a lot of people get into it as a hobby. My suspicion is that they crave that experience, like to feel useful and to feel like they've. Well, there's something called the IKEA effect, and it's a psychological principle where even if you purchase a product that's 80% complete, even if you just assemble it yourself, you feel a greater sense of ownership over the product than you would have otherwise, right? So in that, look, we're not all gonna be cattle ranchers and shit like that. But I think it is why a lot of people gravitate towards camping or home improvement or curing meats or making fucking sourdough bread or whatever it is, because they want to feel like they've created something of their own. I think there is like an intrinsic desire for human beings to have built the things around them, even if, you know what I mean, it's only the finishing part of it. So it's really interesting to me that we've kind of turned all the things we used to do just to fucking stay alive. Now now those are like hobbies that we do on vacation. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I think it's some of that. It's that positive feedback that you feel, you know, that IKEA effect, you know, it does feel good, especially when you build your own fire and cook your own meal on it. You know, that meal will usually taste better than anything you cooked at home.
Oh yeah. Even if it sucks.
It could be it could be shit ingredients because you didn't want anything particularly heavy out with you, but
sure. But food tastes better after a long day at work either way, right? Even if it's, I mean, it's almost like the more bored we get, the more we bitch about stuff that doesn't matter. And that's always been interesting to me because, you know, a cynic would say, well, just keep yourself distracted, but it's not really, you're not really keeping yourself distracted. Those things don't matter. So what you're really doing is focusing on shit that does matter and not distracting yourself. That's not the same thing. Like if your house is on fire and you look in the other direction, that's distracting yourself. If you know, if your house is on fire and you put it out while you ignore the neighbors bickering, that seems a lot more appropriate to me. Anyways, so we do this every show. We talk about principles. You chose 2, 4, and 11. I'll go in that order. So let's start with principle 2. I'll do something every day to help my countrymen, or all men. Can you kind of tell me what that means to you? Or tell me why it jumped off the page to you, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying all of the principles to me, you know, they're good. You've got a really good list there, and it makes it hard to pick a top 3, but I think a lot of them mesh together and everything that, you know, they kind of play off each other. But as far as 2 goes, I think that's just part of the way I was raised, and I think it's something everybody should be cognizant of. I think, you know, it's not impossible. It's not that hard. And even if you don't hit it every day, it's something to strive for. It's really easy to pick up some trash that you're already walking by. It's really easy to hold the door for the next person. It's really easy to, you know, you've got 18 items and some dude walks up with one thing and he's behind you and there's nobody else. And you just hop in front of me, man. You're going to be in and out of here. You don't need to wait for me to check out with 18 items when you've got one. You know, just common courtesy stuff really will help with all people. And there's bigger stuff too. And you know, when we were emailing, I had put in there, like, there was a weekend that me and some of the other guys that contribute for the Fraternal Outdoors, we were getting together to do our very first work haul on this duck boat we've been messing around with. And we did community service for this one family that has a small like eco resort out in Belmont, New York, called Pollywog Holler. And I saw the wife of, you know, the couple that owns it, and she had stated how flooding had come through and it just wiped out. They've got footbridges and stuff that get them back into all these little, these little off the grid cabins and things, and they just didn't have the manpower to fix it. And so I called the guys and I said, hey, it'd be a little fucking selfish of us to sit here and work on a duck boat that we don't really need. Like, it's going to be great for us if we have it going, but this is their livelihood.
Right.
So I called the other two guys and I said, let's meet in Alfred, New York, grab a couple of the active fraternity brothers, a couple guys that happen to be in town. And we got like 6 or 8 guys out there to help fix bridges and shovel out where all the silt had built up and created a big floodplain. So it's choices like that you can make that come across in your life that contribute to principle 2, in my opinion. So
sure, yeah. Well, you said at the beginning that this whole thing is part of the way you were raised. Can you give me some examples of like your parents or other authority figures when you were a kid encouraging this type of behavior? And the reason I ask is so like people are often one of the biggest barriers to entry to doing things like this is not having concrete examples. You know what I mean? And it's not like they're going to go out and do exactly what you did or what your parents or whomever did, but it does, kind of jog the brain a little bit and let you, put you in that mindset anyways.
Yeah. For me, it was always, if someone needs help, you help them, especially if they ask for it. But if they don't ask for it and about it, you go help them. My dad would show up to my grandpa's farm just to help work on some projects here and there, because he knew he was working on them. Tractors broke down, he'd show up and start hooking on the hay. And it's not necessarily just my folks. We small community. My aunts, uncles, grandparents all lived within a couple mile radius. So I had the freedom to run up and down the road with a little go-kart with no freaking roll cage on it, and just zoom up and down the road and go help with little tasks here and there. I was playing or something, and Mom knew that Grandpa needed help up at the farm. Yeah, hey, go see what your grandpa's up to. Okay. Even if it was just being the wrench monkey, just going and grabbing him tools and bringing them to him so that he didn't have to crawl out from under the tractor 100 times in a day. So just little stuff like that, rounding up cattle. If somebody's animal got loose, going, getting on the 4-wheelers or hoofing it by foot and looking around, or if a cow freshened out in the pasture and you didn't know where the calf was, going and wading through the jingweeds looking to find it. So
yeah, I mean, it's so one of the things I tell people a lot is to I hate this whole attitude of self-care these days. I think it's absolute nonsense. Like taking mental health days and shit like that is fucking dumb to me. To me, that is society doing this. A toddler falls and you run over and, coddle them, and they immediately, as a response to that attention, they want to play it up because human beings want more attention, and they lean into being a victim. And if you do it enough, then that becomes their identity, victimhood. And that's what this shit is. It's not about, everybody needs help from time to time, physically, mentally, whatever. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get mental help if you need it. What I'm saying is that coddling people always has the worst possible effect on them. It never works. I've never seen a single instance of that working. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So anyways, in that vein, what I tell people a lot is don't let your problems or frustrations inconvenience other people. You know what I mean? Like if you, a good example, you're not paying attention when you're driving and, oh shit, there's my exit. I'm not cutting people off. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm going to the next exit. I'm the one that fucked up. So I'm the one that should have to spend the extra time getting to where I'm going. It's not everybody else's problem that I fucked up. Even if it wasn't on purpose, or even if wasn't negligent. Like, oh shit, this is fucked up. It's not that I fucked up, but it is a fucked up situation. Okay, cool. I guess I got to go deal with it. You deal with your own problems. But the inverse of that is also, as you said, and it's something that was just kind of the way you raised, be on the lookout for people who are inconvenienced that you can help. You know what I mean? Like if you've got the solution to something and somebody's right over there suffering because they don't have the solution and you decide to keep it to yourself for whatever reason, jealousy or anger, you don't like them, you're too busy, whatever it is, you're a piece of shit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That is completely unacceptable.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate to be on the back end of that this past year, as far as, I've been inconvenienced, if you will. I've had a bad run of luck with tractors being broken down and things needing done around the property. And my father passed away last October, and that just left a real big void in getting stuff done around. And, a lot of the friends and fraternity brothers that I went to school with saw that, and they knew how much work I was trying to get done. And they're like, hey, pick a weekend. Hey, we're coming down. Hey, what do you need? And that's the kind of friends I'm so glad I have around me. And I hope that everybody has at least a handful of those kind of people in their lives, because that's the building blocks to a better moral culture.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, every good deed that you do, every selfless act that you perform is an investment in not just in making sure that you are a better person and that the people around you have a good, true north, I suppose, for morals and ethics, but it's also an investment into a bank. And it's insurance, right? It's social insurance. It is insurance that I want this system to exist where my buddies or the people in my community are going to come help me when I need it. So I'm damn sure going to be here all the time when they need it as well. And you can't do one without the other. We're in me. We're in me culture. And it's like, why wasn't somebody here to help me? Because you weren't fucking there to help anybody else. That's why. And if enough of us ignore that responsibility, then we get what we have today, which is a self-absorbed, pathetic culture that doesn't give a fuck about morals or ethics. They care about being correct. They want to be right. They want to be able to spike the football and say the other side's wrong and celebrate, but they don't give a fuck about it actually being the right thing to do.
Yeah.
The second principle that you chose is the leadership principle, number 4. No matter where I am, I'll be a leader, and as a leader, I will eat last. I think to me, this is all of these principles are going to be chapters in the book that I'm working on. This is actually the one I'm working on right now, and I think this is the most important one because leadership, in the same way that fitness or diet is commonly associated with single task, right? Like I'm going on a diet for X amount of days, or my fitness is tied to these different faddish workouts or whatever the fuck.
Right.
People think of leadership as individual moments where you tell somebody what to do or, punish them for being disobedient or whatever. But in reality, it is a 24-hour-a-day job. It's a lifestyle to be a leader. And we didn't used to have to talk about this stuff because people just knew it and they did it. But it seems like now we're society is like a fucking 5-year-old again. We're having to teach it all the basics of being a decent human being. So tell me why this particular one stood out to you as well.
Well, yeah. So like I said, I've been involved in a lot of, nothing huge, no huge organizations, but I'm involved in several organizations, and I've seemed to find myself in the, in the decision-making portion of the group in quite a few instances, and whether I wanted to or not. But I've been pledge masters, I've been presidents, chairmans, VP, in several organizations now, and I take it pretty seriously when I'm put in those positions, whether I wanted to be there or not, that they are counting on me to do what's best for the group and do what the group wants, not to do what's in my own interest, but to do what's in the interest of all. So, taking care of those that put me there ahead of myself is paramount.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the best leaders aren't. They're not simply people who are 100% selfless all the time, because I think there's got to be a pretty good balance between empathy and accountability. You know what I mean?
I agree.
The best leaders usually aren't the most strict, and the really interesting thing is the best leaders often aren't the best at their particular job. Like if you look at, it's actually pretty rare in professional sports for the best player on the team to be the clubhouse leader as well. You know what I mean? Like the most physically talented person isn't always the best leader. The best leaders are often built because they weren't the best at things and they had to work harder than everybody else. And I think it makes you more self-aware. It makes you know what your faults are, and it also lets you know what your strengths are. And I think these people, the best leaders around us, understand that the greatest among us are motivated by compassion to some degree, right? I think it's very uncomfortable to watch somebody else suffer if you're a good person. And there's also some level, I like to unpack this because it's really interesting to me. There's some level of ego involved as well. Like it is an audacious thing to be a leader sometimes. One of my favorite baseball players, Chipper Jones, used to say, he referred to it as necessary arrogance. Like you've got to know that you're good at this. Otherwise, you're not going to perform very well. And the audacity to challenge the norm, to attempt to rewrite society in a way that makes sense, to build things that mankind never thought it could, even like the leaders who we decided we were going to go to the moon in 1961 and we did it 7.5 years later. Well, maybe. I'm just kidding. It's deeply rooted in ego, that whole thing. And I think this is really important because everybody has this concept of self, this idea of who I am and what I mean to the world. And I think leadership role, especially former leadership roles, but even in smaller groups, and I'm sure you've seen this at the fraternity level where, weak people or bad actors will try to wedge their way into leadership positions so they can dominate other people. But that's not the reason that you should want that. Because we've fallen prey to the fleeting whims of egotistical people quite a bit in human civilization. I mean, more so than good leaders, I would say. Those have been common. And, capricious and selfish people often find themselves famous or wealthy or in leadership positions because, as I like to say, the people that desire power very rarely deserve it. There's something about that desire for power that can corrupt you. So I think the ambition to excel is always present in those types, but I also believe it's present in good people as well. The difference is the best leaders don't associate success, as we define success, with personal gain or status or any of that bullshit. Instead, they routinely tie their fortune to the success of their mission. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be the best this, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to be the best this. Now, if you're talking about building the best society, I think you have to look at Augustus Caesar, Octavian, who became Augustus Caesar. He rose to political power in the second triumvirate, but it was after being like a student of Julius Caesar and seeing all the mistakes that were made from the first triumvirate and all this stuff. And massive ego, right? Huge ego on this guy to think that he should be emperor. You know what I mean? He dissolved the Roman Senate, became emperor for life. But what he did was associate his ego with making sure that Rome was safe, that Roman citizens had jobs, that people weren't starving. He wanted to build the best possible society for his people. That was his entire ego was wrapped up in that. And the Pax Romana, roughly a 200-year period when Rome thrived, is the longest period of peace in Roman history by a wide margin, right? And it finally ended after Marcus Aurelius, but like strength and a duty to Rome was what really marked that period of leadership. And when weak, despotic men followed, so too followed the fucking destruction of the empire. Like it never recovered from that shit. So the same.
I feel like we're in that phase now.
Oh yeah, well,
with America.
So this is why I went on that rant right there, is because the same ego that drives people to get involved in both informal and formal leadership positions exists in shitheads as it does in good people. Like good people see stuff that's fucked up and they're like, all right, somebody's got to fix this. And, you know, not for nothing, but you're somebody. So fix it, you know. That same drive and ambition can be utilized for good. And, you know, it comes through in all sorts of ways. One of them being what you guys are doing now, which is trying to, even to a lesser informal degree, trying to create some kind of institution where people who don't know what to do can find out what to do. I think it's a really important thing. So what kind of leader are you going to be? You know, I don't think you have the option in this country to not be a leader at this point. Like if you're somebody that thinks like we do, which is liberty first, taking care of other people first, from your perspective, like I don't see how you can not step up and take a leadership position and do something.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I've been compelled to step into most of the roles I've stepped into in some form or fashion. You know, when I first joined the fraternity, you know, I saw that we didn't have a fraternity house. You know, we were still living on campus and hiking up into the woods for our parties. Not that I wanted to lose the hiking up into the woods part, but you know, it's real easy as a fraternity to get in a lot of trouble when you have a bunch of dumbasses getting together and being goofy in the fraternity or in the row houses and stuff. You know? So being off campus gives you a little more ability to let yourself loose a little bit without that added disciplinary level of campus. So I took it upon myself to go into the house manager role. I got us, you know, with the help of one of our other fraternity brothers, we got off campus. And because I did that well, they were like, yeah, make him pledge master, because I was APM while I was doing that. So started putting through some guys, and you know, I put one of our largest pledge classes through, which is only 30 guys. It's a small local fraternity, and we were one of the smaller of the small local fraternities, which meant when the campus needed people to do something, you know, other fraternities would send 1/10 of their guys and they'd have enough people. We had to show up 90%. So, you know, keeping that organized, and because I put through a lot of guys at that time, we had an active house of around 30. We, a lot of them went through under me, so they trusted me. So they wanted me to come up to president. So I did.
And when you were president, how did that change things?
It just more organizational, and then the new guys were getting brought in under somebody else, you know.
When you say the new guys are getting brought in under somebody, I don't know that. I was never in a fraternity. I was a National Honor Society, but not an actual fraternity, so I'm not sure how that all works. Can you explain that a little bit?
The pledge master is kind of like I guess you'd call him like your drill sergeant. And then your president's just above that, who's kind of overseeing the whole group. So he's in charge of your sergeants and everybody else.
And your fraternity was Mu Theta?
It was, yeah.
And what's I'm not familiar with them.
They're just a little local out of Alfred State.
And how do you check back in now with the guys that are running it now? How's it still going?
Well, fraternities are way on the downcline, at
Mm,
least in at least in Alfred. Many of the smaller fraternities and sororities are down to just a few people, ours included.
mm,
But they're doing what they can to stay above water and still do the things that we were there to do. Have social ties to each other, to keep each other close, and to help in the greater community. Doing a lot of community service. We've got some alumni that live close by to there. They go over and help on his little farm from time to time. They still do outdoors camping and stuff like that. It's a lesser scale because it's less people, but I'm more focused, I guess, on the alumni side of it now because I'm chairman of our alumni
mm.
board for 5-6 years now. So
I wonder if it might be possible. I know it would be beneficial, but possible to expand on something like this and have um, more community service based fraternities on college campuses. I think not only does it actually help the community, but again, I'll go back to this, reassociating the idea of problem solving with solving other people's problems is a pretty good thing. It's it isn't just the physical actions that build community. It's the general sense that everybody's pitching in. I think
mhm.
um, what we know about child raising, for example, and you can read about this in the 21st Century Guide or Hunter Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century, which is a really good book. What all of our studies show is that when a child feels more secure, when they know their parents love them, when they know that they're gonna support them no matter what they do, and things like this. But they also have they also have discipline, I guess. Then what happens is the child takes more managed risk and learns skills faster and becomes more social. And all this additional stuff happens during the development stages. And I can't help but think of what's happening to kids who transition from high school to college, who, regardless of what may have happened to them in high school or in their home life, now they're on their own for the first time, and every authority figure in their life is telling them that they should think more about themselves than other people. You know what I mean? That shit is fucking poison, so far as I'm concerned. So I really do think that having some kind of formal institution like this at that level, regardless of how you feel about universities, people are going to continue going. So it's not a problem that we can just ignore. So I really feel like it would be a really good idea to
I
have.
think
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I think kind of tangent to that, or maybe parallel to it, I guess. I think some of the big downturn that we're seeing in fraternities and sororities in like recruitment is that, they used to, when they go to college, they would leave all their friends and family behind to go to college,
Mm-hmm.
like you were saying. But now the way the internet and technology is, they're not leaving anybody behind. They're still gaming. They're still talking to these guys on a regular basis. So that sense of community isn't felt. The loss of it isn't as pungent anymore. So they don't have to look for new friends when they get to college. So they aren't expanding their horizons and meeting new people the way people my age did when I first went to college. They can get on Twitch or get on some gaming Discord
Mm.
and be chatting with their buddies and playing games, and it feels like they never left home. Whereas when I
Yeah.
went to college, I had like a little track phone that was supposed to be for emergencies only, unless I could scrape up some money to buy some extra minutes for it. And talking to people was not as easy.
But it's a good
So
point, though, because you came to basically meet a bunch of strangers, and the only thing that you really had to offer to them, like, one, you were put into a situation where you're forced to interact with these people. And then the primary thing you have to offer them is your social competency, which is deeply tied to, empathy and shit like that and understanding other people, and also just your values, right? And maybe your values are good, maybe they're okay, maybe they're great, maybe they're bad, but that process of meeting up with other people who have different values and, doing so from a position where you're forced to get along with each other is super important, because you have to understand why people feel the way they feel about certain things. You have to understand that it's okay that you don't agree with them, you know what I mean, on certain things, because they're in a different situation than you. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's got diabetes and they're drinking water and you're pissed off that they're not drinking whatever you are, you're a fucking idiot. Like they have to do that part, or maybe they even just feel like they have to do it. So I think that process is super important for people, and it's been ultimately corrupted in a lot of ways. I mean, one, there's predatory teaching elements out there that are doing it, but also I think you're onto something. It's not being able to disassociate from home or from whatever, you know what I mean? How are you supposed to learn what it means to be an adult human being in America when you just stick with your same hometown bullshit your whole life?
Yeah, exactly. When I came to college, I got roomed up with a guy from like West Nyack. He's black with dreadlocks. I came from a little town that had a whole, the black population was like one person at that time, literally one person. And, I came and we hung out and we started swapping stories, and we were in the classic dorm setup where the beds are across each other, just sitting on them. And it was like a moment out of Step Brothers. Like, did we just become friends? Yep.
Yeah.
And we hit it off great. And my friends started, I started making other friends via classes and going out to parties and stuff. And he had a couple friends that had joined him from college that were on the cross country team. And that social network just started to mesh and grow. And then some of those guys ended up, pledging other fraternities. People that met my group ended up pledging my fraternity. And social network just grows and grows and grows until there's more people than you can name. And if I just sat on Twitch the moment I got to college, that wouldn't be happening.
No, that's a terrible thing to do. So when you're pledge master and you're in this particular type of fraternity with that kind of mindset, who are you looking for pledges? Like what's if you had to, put a job posting out there for it, I guess, what would that look like?
We're looking with guys that mesh with the group. They don't necessarily have to be anything like us. They don't have to fit the mold. There's no perfect mold for a guy. We've got guys from every walk of life, but what we really look for is, do they get along with a good group of the active house at that time? Do they, can they carry a conversation? Can they mesh with us? Do they cause trouble? Like if they're not causing trouble, they're not being an asshole, then they're probably able to get a shot. And then for Alfred State, pledging is limited to 4 weeks. That changes all over the place from college to college, but it's 4 weeks in Alfred. And during that 4 weeks, we start going through, these are, we've got our own principles and code of conduct type of stuff that we work through within the fraternity to make sure that they're, on board with all that stuff, and work through some lessons and do some hard shit sometimes. But
cool.
We also go through and say, hey, anything we do with you guys, any of these activities, if you're not comfortable with it, say something. We'll sit there and do it with you. You can call out any brother that's standing here, including your pledge master. And if you don't like that you're doing jumping jacks because none of you bothered to fill out your pledge book, then we'll jump in and do the jumping jacks with you, because we've been there, we've done it before, and we'll do it again because we believe in the process.
Sure.
That was kind of the ethos that we really tried to have.
Yeah, that's good. It's what I discussed before. You can't ask people to do shit that you're not willing to do. That's not leadership. And it's all like at any level, whether you're a parent, whether you're an elected official, whether you're a teacher, pledge master, it doesn't fucking matter where you are. If you ask people to do shit that you're clearly not willing to do, then nobody respects that. The last one you wanted to talk about is 11. I'll live a life worth dying for? What does that mean to you?
To me, I mean, there's tons of folks like yourself that have done even greater service to this community through military or government service, and there's many who paid the ultimate price for that, and I feel like it's yeah, as a citizen of the United States, it's bearing the benefit of those sacrifices. I think it's very important that we, not take it for granted and live in a fashion that is worth that sacrifice. But
And walk me through some of that. Like, how does that work for you uh, on a any given day kind of situation?
yeah, for me, that kind of that's an overarching thing, and then for me, as far as my own moral compass that helps me feel like I'm doing that is actually a set of our own principles that we did through the fraternity. Had to do some revamping at the time I was active just because of some of the school rules and policies, trying to get in accordance so that we didn't fall under, some hazing regulations and things like that. We had to revamp some things. So they changed the protocols. And one of the things we developed was a set of, well, to lay it out, there's 4 pillars of Greek life that everybody gets. And then, we decided, hey, you're building a house, right? Those are your pillars, but where's your walls? And we call them the walls, and we have confidence, loyalty, integrity, and perseverance. And we, one of the guys I put through, he was a Marine, and he was damn near 40 when he pledged. It was kind of weird. I was like 22 and he's like almost 40. I was his pledge master. So that was kind of fun. But he's like, hey, can we turn that into an acronym? I'm like, sure, man. What do you got? He's like, CLIP. Okay. So that's that word circles in my head all the time when I come to a decision point where I got to put thought behind it. I go, CLIP, confidence, loyalty, integrity, perseverance. And the one I feel comes in a lot, well, the middle two really, loyalty and integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's looking, and doing the right thing for your friends and the people who've shown loyalty back to you. Really mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, loyalty is a big deal. I think the idea of patriotism gets wrapped up in loyalty a lot, but I think it gets misused quite a bit as well. Yesterday, we're recording this on Monday the 12th. Yesterday was the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, and we all remember the victims of that, and then the people who stepped up in the wake of that tragedy. But we also remember the way that our patriotism was leveraged against us to create a police state, a surveillance state, and to waste trillions of dollars on wars that really didn't accomplish anything. You know what I mean? And it sacrificed quite a few lives, and some of the best lives among us. You know what I mean? So whenever I talk about loyalty, especially in this sense of being a citizen and a patriot, I think it's really important to remember that it is the Constitution, right, that we are all loyal to, not one particular political party, and certainly not one politician or another. It's the ideas behind that individual liberty and personal entrepreneurship, owning your own shit, the rights of man, those are the most important things that exist. And we're loyal to that. And if you are also loyal to that, then not only am I loyal to you, but I consider you a member of my family, right? This is our tribe, people that decided to, for the first time in human history, tell statists and authoritarians and patricians to go fuck themselves. And we're going to create our own government. Well, unfortunately, statists and patricians immediately showed up and started trying to, leverage our circumstance and patriotism against us. But that's our fault. That shit only happens because we allow it to happen. And that's my challenge to people when they say, I talk about this particular principle with people a lot, because it's like, support the troops. All right, what does that mean? Like, oh, you got to live a life worth dying for because people have died for you. Like, all right, cool. What does that mean? And it means to me, and I hope this resonates with other people, but it means to me that the ideological foundation of this country, self-determinism and liberty, are worth dying for, no matter who benefits from it, right? And our intent should be to ensure that everybody benefits from it. Liberty only exists if it exists for everybody. You know what I mean? And it also only exists if we flex that muscle, if we flex our liberty muscle from time to time. Whenever you kneel instead of standing tall in these tough moments, then everybody else has to carry the weight in your stead. You know what I mean? It's like the log drill in Buds. If you quit on your teammate, then they have to carry that extra weight. It doesn't just go away. The weight doesn't go away. But the good news is also that while the weight doesn't get lighter, you do get stronger. But the only way you get stronger is if you continue to flex that shit. So, maybe it seems silly to make a big deal out of small things that the government's trying to do, right? As they're eroding your liberty, but every single inch they take is an inch that we won't get back, right? So
they don't just give them back once they have a hold of them.
Well, I mean, the TSA was supposed to be a temporary measure. That organization didn't exist. It was supposed to be a temporary measure during this brief period, and today, I think we spend. Hold on, I got to look it up. I think it's $80 billion.
Unreal.
We spend on TSA. Just the checkpoints cost $5 billion a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's billions and billions of dollars. So the latest full fiscal 2022 or 2020, it was $8 billion per year.
Unreal.
And this is something that wasn't even supposed to exist. The Patriot Act is still in effect right now. We bomb Yemen about 30 times a day. Nobody knows why, right? This is all stuff that, hey, this doesn't affect me. Well, it does, right? Because while you're distracted with all the silly bullshit at home, you're getting you're being robbed blind of both your money and your liberty here. You know what I mean? So again, to me, the whole the loyalty thing, the impetus for living a life to honor these people, to honor the system itself, it's a lot more than just saying it. That's for sure. Yeah.
If you don't have a moral compass or an ethos behind those words, then it's just lip service, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. This has been a really good episode. I like at the top of the show, you kind of bemoaned the fact that you're an ordinary person, but that's one of the things we like to do here. I don't want to just talk to people who are in the media or are celebrities and shit like that. That doesn't help. For those of you out there who live what you would consider to be ordinary lives, there are people just like you doing extraordinary things, like yourself, for example. So I appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we get out of here?
I don't think so. You're too kind. Like I said before, I'm just your average guy, couple kids, wife. I got loans. I work every day. Just trying to make a small difference in my local community. But I really appreciate what you're doing with this podcast. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a conversation that we need in America right now. So
cool. Thanks for coming on today. We really appreciate it. Tell people where they can find your organization on the interwebs.
Yeah, so mostly Instagram, Fraternal Outdoors on Instagram. We've got a Facebook page you can follow as well. It's usually just cross-posted off from Instagram. Coming in probably October, we should have some launch on YouTube and podcasts.
Cool. Well, again, thanks for coming today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yep. And thanks you all for listening. This has been Citizen.